Every friend group has that one person who insists on doing things the hard way. You know, the friend still paying for the subscription they forgot about or refusing to upgrade their phone because it still works. I used to be that person too, especially when it came to overpaying for wireless. Then we learned about Mint Mobile. And yes, lesson learned. Forget the whole "this is just how it's always been" nonsense. You get the same coverage, the same speed, unlimited talk, text, and data, just without the inflated price tag. We are so pumped that Mint Mobile is our sponsor and can't wait to try their services. Who doesn't want to save money without compromising Wi-Fi connection? Duh. And right now, you can get 50% off 3, 6, or 12-month plans of unlimited premium wireless. No contracts, no hassle. With a 7-day money-back guarantee and customer satisfaction ratings in the mid-90s, Mint makes it easy to switch. And once you do, you'll wonder why you waited so long. Ready to stop paying more than you have to? New customers can make the switch today, and for a limited time, get unlimited premium wireless for just $15 per month. Switch now at mintmobile.com/Colty. That's mintmobile.com/Colty. Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for a 12-month plan required. $15 a month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Over 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. Additional terms apply. See mintmobile.com. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, medical, or mental health advice. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the podcast and are not intended to malign any religion, group, club, organization, business, individual, anyone, or anything.
I'm Sarah Edmondson.
And I'm Anthony Nippy Ames, and this is A Little Bit Culty.
We woke up from a cult, and that journey was captured in The Vow on HBO and in my memoir, Scarred.
Now, in this podcast, we break down the shame and secrets that make these experiences so destructive with honest conversations on how seemingly benign groups can cross into the cultiverse and how to spot and recover from trouble if it happens to you.
Each week, we bring in experts, survivors, and whistleblowers to explore red flags, resilience, and even share a few laughs, because sometimes you gotta laugh.
Subscribe to our Patreon for early and ad-free listening, some live Q&A, and exclusive content at patreon.com/alittlebitculty.
Welcome to Season 8 of A Little Bit Culty.
Welcome back to A Little Bit Culty, everybody. We cold chillin'. Huh,
Yes, we are. We are cold chillin' today with Margot Lane and Jezebel Sweet, two musicians who appear in the new incredible documentary, we can't recommend it enough, Corey Feldman versus the World, available now on Apple TV, YouTube, Google Play. By the way, next week we'll be talking with the film's director, Marcy Hume, which is a totally different conversation.
In part one, we get into how they both got pulled into Corey's world through what looked like legit musical opportunities, the early love bombing and the we're family vibe, and the red flags that started popping up around the control, boundaries, and safety, on the stage, at home, and on the road.
Margot Lane is a Los Angeles-based artist and bandleader from Buffalo, New York, known for her eclectic blend of rock, pop, and blues with nearly 2 decades of experience teaching, performing, and collaborating, including work as a live musician and piano technician for iconic artists.
Jezebel Sweet is a singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and dancer whose dark pop, rock, and cinematic songs first hit the scene with her 2021 debut single, Relentless. She now performs solo and with her full band out of Minneapolis, recording her new EP and touring across the U.S.
If you've ever wondered how a dream gig could potentially turn into a slow burn nightmare, this episode is for you. And please do stay tuned for part 2 that drops Thursday, where we find out how they both eventually left the group and got back on their feet.
Here's part 1 with Margot Lane and Jezebel Sweet.
Margot and Jez, welcome to A Little Bit Culty.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Like I said, this is going to be just super casual. Think of it as conversations with people that you don't know yet about your experience. People who understand the journey and come from a very non-judgy place. So
yeah, you're in a safe space.
I hope this is cathartic for you and a good place to just tell your story in a more long form way than the documentary.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for all you've done to actually, uplift survivors. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. So for our audience, because we have two guests today, two survivors, we'll go in order every time. I'll start with questions from Margot and then with Jez. So why don't we start with some little introductions. Margot, tell the audience what they need to know about you, who you are, what your passions are, and what was going on in your life when you heard about this opportunity.
Oh, I had moved out to Los Angeles to just do basically just music. I was doing it back on the East Coast in Buffalo, New York. And I pretty much played every place and wanted to seek other opportunities. And I got really lucky. I was piano technician for Elton John. I had been on a couple of national tours with Kamyar, who's a Persian artist, and Marco Antonio Solis. And it kind of hit a dry spell in Los Angeles in the music scene where I was just doing gigs where I wasn't really excited about, and nothing with the music was like entertaining or exciting. And I was really bored. And I was with one of my band members at a hockey game. And she said, well, if you're just feeling this way, there's this artist and he's looking for musicians. And I go, well, who is it? And she told me it was Corey Feldman. And I said, okay, well, where did you see this posting? And she told me it was on Twitter, and she brought it up during the hockey game. So we were looking at it, and it said he was looking for a guitarist, bass player. And I'm like, well, that's not really my forte. I'm more piano, violin. I can do rhythm guitar, but in no means want to be known as a guitar player. But I'll see if he needs a keyboardist. His era of music seems to be like a lot of like pads and synths and keyboards. Maybe I can be part of this. And at that point, it was a couple of years after, or maybe a year after the Today Show. So I wasn't his finagling debacle on the Today Show with his band. So I wasn't really thinking about that at the time. I wanted to kind of talk with him and see it through. And within 30 minutes, he messaged me back, which is kind of unusual. Usually with artists looking for band members, there's a couple, like a day or maybe even 3 before you even hear from anyone.
Right.
And it was just right away. And he wanted to call me, but I said, hey, I'm, not tonight doesn't work, but tomorrow. And it just became where it was just full immersion really quickly, where he had kept calling me, but there was a service issue because he was in Colorado on a ski trip or something. And then it kind of evolved into, well, come by the house, check out my music. I asked him if he had chord charts, and he said, no, just learn the music. And I was like, okay, I've heard that, 1,000 times. That's fine. I just need a couple days. So I took a couple days, learned some of his songs, which wasn't the best times because the music's horrible. And learned a couple other bands of that era that he kind of was well suited with. So like Journey and Foreigner. And when I kind of set up to go to his house, he told me management will be there. He's auditioning other people at the same time. And his wife was there, and it felt very above board. I felt like, okay, I can go to someone's house. It just felt very unusual as little like words kind of seep through, but I still went.
Okay, great time to pause. That's perfect storytelling device there. So we'll pause. And Jez, tell us about who you were and how you heard about this opportunity.
So I am mainly a singer-songwriter, and I grew up playing classically trained in piano. I played a little bit of guitar, and I was living in Miami at the time when a friend of mine reached out to me and told me that she thought she had a good opportunity for me, that she had a friend that was looking for female musicians. And it just so happened that I actually was going to LA the next day. I was about to be moving out of my apartment in Miami, and she didn't even know that. So it was kind of a strange coincidence that she happened to contact me about this opportunity. I was dating someone who lived in LA, and I was kind of wanting to move out there, but I had never been there before. And she told me that he was looking for a rhythm guitar player. Initially, I actually said no to the opportunity because I really didn't know how to play guitar that well. I only knew a few chords. And so it didn't really seem to make sense to me that somebody would hire me for a tour as a guitar player. But she was really insistent that she thought that my level of skill wasn't going to be an issue, that he was more so looking for a certain look for his musicians and that I fit that bill. So she really encouraged me to reach out to him. I didn't really know who he was or much of anything about him. I had never heard his music. I looked him up and I had, seen one of his movies. So yeah, I decided to just kind of give it a try. And by the time I got out to LA, I had already set up an audition with him at his house. And he had told me that I could move in with him and have free room and board if I were to get hired. So it seemed like a way for me to possibly kind of get into moving to Los Angeles, which was where I wanted to be. So that was kind of how I got started in that with him.
All very serendipitous.
Can I
Yeah.
draw some parallels? Jazz, it seems pretty overt that he's pursuing you based on a look, more so than like what you offer musically. And Margot, did you get that he was doing the same to you, or do you think these are two different tactics?
A little bit of both. I say that because I think when I first applied, I still had my natural color, which is strawberry blonde. And I think he wanted to keep that whole blonde look. But right before I had gone in for the audition, I was wanting to be a brunette. I think they're just, I don't know, other side of the fence. And so I went in as a brunette. I had just dyed my hair. And I feel like he had a lot of hesitations despite coming in and playing songs. And he seemed to be really digging, my musical ability and technique and skill. I think he was still trying to find the perfect girl that he would fit into that, cutout poster look of blonde hair, blue eyes and stuff. And, I just didn't fit that.
My impression is the music is the bait and switch.
Yeah, I don't think he was getting a lot of people that wanted to apply for that gig, to be honest with you. When I think back, okay. I don't think he was getting a lot of responses. There was, YouTube videos of old performances, and then there were YouTube videos of his Today Show performances that was comedic. And I just wasn't ready to take a comedic gig. I was more or less into that whole, like, I need to be in a serious gig and be taken seriously. At that time, I was 31. And I was like, when you're a woman in LA, especially, but when you're a woman in the entertainment business, you kind of hit a certain point where you're like, am I not getting gigs because I'm aging out? So he was definitely hunting for blonde and really young.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about what things were like at the beginning. Like, was there ever a time when it was like exciting and fun and you thought, okay, this is going to go somewhere at the beginning? What was it like for you, Margot?
I thought it was a lot of fun. I was really excited. I mean, I grew up watching him and he was in some of my favorite movies like The Burbs and of course like The Goonies, things like that. And I got off that first phone call and I was jumping up and down and I was super excited. I was kind of hesitant to tell like friends and family because I started to get wind of his reputation and I was really concerned about it. But when I met him, his wife answered the door, Courtney answered the door, and everybody just seemed really friendly and inviting. And it seemed very much like they wanted me part of more or less this environment. It wasn't like a band situation I walked into. So at that point, I think he was preying on women that were kind of by themselves because at that point I was single, by myself, no family in LA, and just jumping gig to gig. So I think he really preyed upon my situation, but that's just my take on it.
Did you move in with him also?
No, I never did. That was like an undercurrent that was very strong all the time. They kept insisting, well, Margot, you pay so much in rent. Margot, you pay so much for bills. All your, hard work goes towards your bills. You could live here for free and I could make your life easier. And I just didn't want to give that up. I had worked so hard to have my own place. And it was just me and my cat Stitches at the time. And I just didn't want to lose that. I loved coming home and just being able to be alone. And I knew if I was moving into a group of people that I would never have that space. So
yeah, I think that autonomy and sort of foot in reality saves you later, but we'll come back to that. So you've painted this picture. It felt very welcoming. Our term, I'm sure you've heard it by now, is love bombing. making you feel like welcome and part of a group and doing something pretty special.
Which can
Oh,
even be
yes.
as simple as just finding out what you're going for and dangling it.
Yeah, this is a hook, right?
Yes, he very much changed his own persona on what he would feel like I was looking for and adapted toward me, I've noticed, because rewinding the tape, thinking back, I was like, wow, he acted differently toward me when I met him. And in the first couple of weeks when I was getting to know him and be in that environment versus the other girls when he would meet them. And it kind of just raised my eyebrows and my antennas went up. I was like, something's weird about that. And I didn't think too much of it because I was just like, you know what? It's a gig is a gig. And I try to separate my personal and professional feelings always to make sure that I do uphold integrity and I show up and I do the work and then I
Professional.
leave. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really try to maintain that. So
Okay, so I'm gonna come back to you for more of those red flags in just a sec. Jez, what was your beginning time? So you move in. You've just come from Miami. You move in. What was it like at first? Give us some of the first impressions, like things we don't see in the film.
So at the beginning, I felt like that love bombing that you're describing, like everything was very sweet and kind. They seemed very generous to be letting me live with them for free. It went really well at first, but it felt like a really good opportunity as a musician because they already had shows set up. They already had the tour in the works by the time that I got involved with it, which is something that sometimes as a musician is almost unheard of. Like sometimes you're doing a lot of work of like putting a band together before you get to the point where you have something like that you can just join in on. So it seemed like a really good opportunity in that way. And they were very kind in letting me move in with them. And, they would make dinner every night at the beginning. And it seemed like things had the intention of being very professional, even though they clearly had like sort of I found out pretty soon that they had sort of a polyamorous situation going on with not only his wife that lived there, but they had another girlfriend that they told me about pretty early on. And it was communicated to me that I was basically invited to be a part of that, but that it wasn't going to affect my job or my living situation in any way if I wasn't interested. So I did communicate very clearly to them early on that I was just there in a professional capacity and that I didn't have any interest in that. And that seemed okay in the very beginning. And so it seemed like they had the intention of being above board with everything at the start.
So curious how that was did they
I'm
sit you down
curious.
at the kitchen table and say, FYI, we're in a throuple, or like, how was it? How did they bring it up?
Sure. So initially, I only knew about his wife initially, which I would say actually kind of disarmed me in the beginning because I didn't feel particularly comfortable just going to his house to do the audition. But when I looked into him and saw that he was married, I'm like, okay, he's, hopefully then not trying, maybe naive on my part, thinking that I wasn't going to have to field any advances from him because he was a married man. And I hadn't been there very long when they told me about their girlfriend. I think I met her pretty soon into living there. There was kind of a lot of partying going on. So in the beginning, like there were nights where we were hanging out and like they took me out for, I think my birthday was like pretty soon after I had moved in, like a few days after I had moved into the house. And so his girlfriend came over and we all like went out to a nightclub and, they were trying to get me to drink with them, even though they don't even really drink, but they were using harder drugs that I wasn't really interested in. So they're like, well, would you like maybe have a cocktail or something? And so I think we were all hanging out in their room after we had gone out that night. And they just kind of fielded the offer to me that like, if I were potentially interested in like joining in with them that night for whatever like group sex sort of situation that they had going on. And so, yeah, it just was kind of like a casual offer when we were all hanging out. And I made it really clear that wasn't something that I was interested in. I wasn't judging them at all, like to each their own, but like polyamory, it just isn't like something that's for me.
Good for you.
Anything else, Jez, that you want to say about like what it was like at first, or should we go into red flags?
Yeah, I
from
mean, I feel
Margot?
like the red flags started pretty quickly. So I'm not really sure what else to say about like what it was like at the beginning.
Perfect. Okay, we'll come back to you then. Margot, you've said a couple already. Tell us some of your other red flags that you witnessed.
There's so many to choose from. Where should we start? I will start with, well, I'll confirm a couple that maybe people saw on the film, and then I'll talk into some that were behind the scenes. So in like the beginning of the film, you kind of see where we lose our drummer and we have to go, basically, we have to find another. And my first red flag was he was worried about how to post that we needed a drummer. And I was like, this is very odd. You don't need to give explanations. Bands go through all different types of musicians all the time. It was very weird. But then when he and Phil were going over pictures of these other women that wanted to be in the band, they were either, above 120 in weight, or they weren't, tall and blonde, or which, by the way, all that criteria fit me at the time. And I'm like, kind of like going, oh my God, like what's wrong with these women are fine. And then I remember showing him a picture of one of the drummers that I originally had talked to come in the beginning and who became our summer and our spring drummer, Marissa Testa. And he remarked about her jaw looking like his. And I'm like, this is just so strange that we're trying to get somebody in to fill a musician spot, but you're worried about her looks. So that was a red flag. And you can kind of see it on my face. I'm holding my phone like, what the fuck is happening here? And then it evolved into when the cameras were rolling, he would become this spineless person with this Michael Jackson voice. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? This is crazy. So like he presented himself different to me. And I met Jezebel kind of at the same time I started. And she had already been in it like a day or two, I think it was, when I started. And I was like, okay, like I immediately had a connection with Jezebel. And I was like, cool. But, we had other musicians where he would complain about just because with the way they looked or the way they dressed. And it was just comments here and there that were just major red flags. And then it evolved where we were in the costumes. And I had chosen, there were two choices. There was a 2-piece and then there was a 1-piece. And I chose the 1-piece because I don't want to be worried about what I wear on stage. I've never had to deal with that. I've even been in Vegas gigs where you have to wear like a mini skirt, but you can wear shorts underneath and you're on a high stage with heels. And it never bothered me. But the way he was setting things up and the way he was telling me that despite my choice, I could just do the 2-piece and I don't give myself enough credit. And I'm like, this wasn't about my confidence. And so immediately I started having problems with him because when somebody says something about how I feel, I have a problem with you because I'm a pretty upfront person. I will say it like it is. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I don't beat around the bush. And when someone kind of goes around that, they're disrespecting me. And it's just kind of the way I grew up, how I felt. But those were the beginning red flags, and it just kept getting worse. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And this is before the tour.
Yeah, we were still doing the stupid photo shoot where Jezebel had to make love to my keyboard by this photographer. She kept telling her, do it like you're making love to the keyboard. And I'm like, don't violate my keyboard. Please don't do that to my instrument. And at that point, like Jezebel and I had a pretty great relationship where I was like, she's like looking at me and I'm looking at her like, what the hell are we into right now? Like, this is kind of funny. They must be joking. That's funny. They must be joking. And that kept going through my head. Like, I still need to do this gig, right? Can I do this gig? And my mind just kept in that mode. But at that point, when we lost our first drummer, Nicole, I was literally sitting next to Courtney on that couch saying, I don't think I should be here either. I got to keep a straight face right now. I need to think about this. So you kind of see that in the film. Yeah.
Right.
And had he paid you yet?
Oh, no. We didn't get paid for any rehearsals. And we were there maybe 5-6 days. I was there 5-6 days a week. I know Marissa Testa was there 5-6 days a week because she didn't live there yet. And so the two of us were coming in for rehearsals 5-6 days a week. And it was hours at a time. So no one got paid for that. Yeah.
That's unusual, right? Like, we're not in the music industry. Normally you get paid for rehearsals as a freelance
You get paid.
musician.
I mean, usually it's not as much the rate as you would play a live show. It's, it's part of prep. But when you're in the beginning stages or you're playing for a bigger artist or someone that has a bigger platform, bigger name in Hollywood, they do pay you. They do compensate you. And I had experienced that prior.
And I meant to ask this earlier. Are there contracts for a job like this? Like, when you sign up for the job and you audition, is it laid out like you're going to do this and you're going to get paid this, or no? Is it kind of like?
There was very much verbal contracts, so verbal discussions. His manager was there and he would kind of convey the same thing and kind of mimic the same wordage as well, I noticed. But until the summer tour, which kicked off and Jezebel can help me, I think it was June, we didn't have a full-on 9, 10, I think it was 11-page contract.
Let's take a break from the cultiverse, shall we? Here's a word from our sponsors.
One thing I'm proud of this year is I'm still wearing my favorite pieces from 2025. And honestly, that's kind of the whole point with Quince. They're all about elevated essentials that feel effortless. That's right, effortless. Pieces designed for layering, mixing, and actually living in. Not trends you're over in 6 months. No, not me. Quince really nails the wardrobe staples with qualities that last. Think 100% organic cotton sweaters, premium denim with stretch that's comfortable all day, and those cotton cashmere blends that are perfect when the seasons in Atlanta can't make up their mind. These are the pieces you reach for on repeat. Quince works directly with safe, ethical factories and cuts out the middleman, so you're not paying for brand markup, just generally high-quality clothing, European linen, organic cotton, beautiful fabric, and thoughtful details. I just got a new pair of pants, like pants, not sweats, which are my regular go-to. It's like wearing butter around your buttocks, as Forrest Gump would put it. You want a pair? You can order some too. Ultra stretch 24/7 smart chinos, athletic tapered, of course. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/culty for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/culty to get free shipping and a 365-day returns. Quince.com/culty.
My friends, you have heard us gush about Hungry Root before, and honestly, we can't stop. As busy parents and podcasters, it's been a total game changer for saving time, cutting stress, and keeping us healthy. Hungry Root plans all of our meals for the week, fills our cart, delivers everything we need to eat well every day, tailored to our personal health goals, dietary preferences, and budget. They've got over 50,000 chef-crafted recipes every week, with many ready in 15 minutes or less, plus over 1,000 grocery items like smoothies, sweets, kids' snacks, salad kits, ready-to-eat meals, and supplements. It's so easy to find options that actually work for our whole family. Also, Hungry Root holds its food to high standards. No high fructose corn syrup, artificial sweeteners, or sketchy preservatives. Organic produce, high-quality meat and seafood, and trusted brands like Oatly and Vital Farms, Ithaca Hummus. If your New Year's resolution is to eat healthier, Hungry Root makes it easy to actually stick with that past January. I love how Hungry Root not only knows that we try to be gluten-free in our family and that I'm like pseudo-keto-ish. In our last box, I got a bunch of grab-and-go high-protein snacks, hello, perimenopause, and healthy snacks for the kids that were Sarah-approved. Thanks to Hungry Root, we are winning at life over here. You are going to love Hungry Root as much as I do. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/culty and use code culty. That's hungryroot.com/culty, code culty to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. The new year is here, and honestly, is it just me, or do we all need a little at-home refresh after the holidays? Wayfair makes it super easy to elevate your space without breaking the bank. I'm talking bedding, mattresses, storage solutions for every room, even desks and chairs for the podcast recording room you are dreaming of. We've refreshed our living room with some accent pillows, a few mirrors and faux plants for way less than expected, and it actually feels like a new space. Wayfair's massive selection makes it easy to find exactly what's right for you, whether you're on a budget, hunting for a statement piece, or just trying to get organized, which for us is what 2026 is all about. We also love how Wayfair sends us suggestions of items that fit into our vibe, including gorgeous new chairs for our new YouTube studio and our podcast space. I love how these chairs were not only easy to assemble, but also so comfortable and well-made. From home decor to storage to creating a functional work or recording space, Wayfair really is your one-stop shop. Get organized, refreshed, and back on track this year for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things. That's WAYFAIR.com, Wayfair. Every style, every home.
Escape's over. Let's return to our regularly scheduled cult talk.
One of the things that we notice with a lot of our guests is there's normally an ecosystem around the perpetrator that protects him and perpetuates the abuse to the victims, like a manager or someone there who kind of sees it and doesn't say anything. Do you think there was like a lot of people that were kind of in on what he was doing, knowing that he was doing things that were below board and not above board? Or how well do you think he hid it? Was he overt? Like, how open was the secret, I guess? And then how much of the people around him enabled him to abuse people?
People that were around him, people definitely knew his behaviors. People knew what was going on. People were well aware. There were definitely adults, and I'm not going to say who it was, that should be held still accountable and responsible for letting us walk into that situation. I'm still very angry about those people. I limit my contact with them to this day because I still don't trust them. Even my socials, it's all about music. I mean, my whole life is about music. And to let me walk in and let horrible things not only happen around me, but to be well aware that they were going to happen, I have a big problem with those people.
Fair. Okay, we'll come back to that. Jez, what were you've shared some of the other red flags from your experience.
Sure. So I think even the fact that I was being considered for the project in the first place was sort of a red flag to me, because being in a city like Los Angeles, where there are so many talented people who are so skilled at their instrument, it seems strange that he was trying to hire me for something, even though I did have a background in music, but not for what he was looking for. And then when I got involved with the project, I would say there was definitely a red flag of him trying to get me to move in with him immediately, as in like the day that I met him. Like, he auditioned me and he was like, "You're perfect. You should move into the house and I'm going to take you on tour." And I pushed back on it a little. I didn't really have a lot of time because I was only in Los Angeles for 4 days. And then if I wasn't taking the project, I was going to have to take my flight out and leave. I didn't really have enough money to like just continue staying in LA without work. So, but I did still have a place lined up that I had rented for like that night, I think. And he pushed back on me immediately about me wanting to even go spend my last night in the place that I had rented. He's like, "Well, why don't you just want to move in tonight? Like, why wouldn't you want to just go get your stuff right now and move right in?" And it just seemed, that was definitely a big red flag to me in the beginning. And then as things went on, I would say some of the early red flags, there was an incident, actually the night that I was talking about earlier, where they initially invited me to join in on like the group sex situation. So we had just had that conversation about how I wasn't interested, and I communicated that very clearly. And then I remember him starting to run a bath, and he's like, "Oh, like we're gonna take a bath." And I was like, "Oh, okay, you guys are gonna take a bath. Like I'll guess I'll, head to bed, have fun." And he was like, "Oh no, like we're all gonna take a bath. Like you can come take a bath with us." And I was so confused because I'm thinking, like, didn't we just have a conversation that I wasn't interested in this? So it just seemed like he was kind of ignoring what I had communicated. And I stood firm with it. And I was like, "No, like, that's okay. Like, I'm really tired. I'm going to go to bed." I wasn't really sure what wasn't getting communicated there. So there was things like that early on where my boundaries were being pushed. And then another thing early on that started happening was like the situation with like eating and food. Like initially when I moved in, his wife was making dinner for us every night. And obviously, like I was taking the job without any initial pay. And even though it wasn't communicated to me in the beginning that I wasn't going to be able to work a job outside of that, when I had mentioned that I was going to go try to get some work, he had told me that he didn't want me to be working while I was living in the house, and he wanted me to only be just a part of Corey's Angels. And that was all he wanted me to be doing. And he was like, don't worry about it. Like, I'll take care of you in the meantime, and then once we start doing shows, then you'll be getting paid for the shows and you'll have your own money. But, don't worry about anything. The first time that we went grocery shopping, they let me pick out groceries. So it was okay at the very start because I had my own food, and then his wife was making us dinner every night. But then it seemed like as soon as they realized that I wasn't going to be dating them or sleeping with them, all of a sudden that situation changed. And then all of a sudden his wife was only making dinner for them. And she was like, oh, you kind of just got to fend for yourself. And then it was like the next time we went grocery shopping, I wasn't given the opportunity to pick out groceries. And I wasn't allowed to eat any of the produce in the house because that was all his wife's food. And then if I ate the food that was Corey's food, sometimes they would get mad about it if I ate the last of something. Or so it became a really weird situation with trying to even just eat every day. It was like I wasn't really sure what I was allowed to eat or wasn't. It seemed like they would get upset about things. And it was just such a huge change from being an independent person, living in my own apartment and taking care of myself, to all of a sudden having to rely on someone else and be permissed to even just go eat a meal.
Jez, I don't know if Marcy told you this, but we're writing a book about everything we've learned since starting the podcast, and we're practicing the narration of it right now. And this is so textbook. The first section of the playbook is isolating, and creating a dependency. And this is I can't wait to share this with both of you to help you see
the gray area is where the abuse is happening.
Yeah. Well, specifically, you didn't buy into the sort of unspoken contract. Like the fresh produce is only for the people in the polyamorous
and
relationship.
Say, this is intentional on their part.
Yeah. Yeah. To make you feel bad about not participating. But it's also if they were to listen to this, they would say, of course not. This is, this is our home, and, she's a grown woman and she can get her own groceries. There's always plausible deniability to protect themselves. And
right, you were targeted, manipulated.
Yeah, this is
for sure
very upsetting. I'm so sorry that you went through this. How long did this go on for before how long did you have to endure this before you went on tour?
So I joined in January, and then the first shows, we had a smaller run of shows in April, and then the main tour started in June.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a few months before I had any kind of income.
So the buildup was January, February, March.
That's a few months, and you weren't earning money. So how did you do that?
Well, I had to eat. So I still, I was told that I was allowed to eat the food, but it was they would get upset about whatever it was I would choose to eat. So it was kind of a complicated situation. So, I would go into the kitchen and make something, but his wife would be glaring at me. And then it was certain things were off limits. So I would eat the food that was his so it's she was a vegan. So she mostly ate, lots of fruits and vegetables. And then he was a vegetarian, and he ate more of a processed, fake meat sort of diet. So I tended to eat the things that he would eat. I would try to eat whatever there was the most of so that they would not be upset about me eating the last of something. One of the things that I would do a lot of the time was when they would have their group sex parties, I would go into the kitchen and try to find something to eat while they were distracted.
Let's take a little break from the cultiverse. Here's a word from our sponsors.
Caring for a parent or senior loved one can feel overwhelming, especially when you want to do everything right. On A Little Bit Culty, there's a lot of talk about spotting red flags and finding support. That's important when it comes to care, too. With Care.com, you don't have to do it alone. You can find background-checked caregivers for anything from companionship to dementia care, or even browse senior living communities and read real reviews. If you're not sure what's best, Senior Care Advisors, who are all master's-level social workers, can help you build a plan that fits your family. 29 million families have turned to Care.com to find help for their loved ones. For a limited time, use the code POD20 for 20% off your initial Care.com subscription. That's POD20, all one word, good for 20% off. Start your senior care search today.
Thank you for listening. Now, let's dive back into the cultiverse. This was an ongoing event, the group sex. This is like a big part of their lifestyle.
Yeah, so they had the girlfriend that would come a lot of, like, quite often. She would be there. So a lot of the times it was just the three of them, but then they had other couples that would come and join in. And sometimes they would even try to kind of like sneak people in and out. I don't think he wanted me to know that there were like men that they were involved with, because sometimes it was like they would kind of wait till I was in my room for the night and then I would hear them like partying with other people that had come into the house. So, but yeah, it was definitely a big part of their lifestyle. On the weekends, he had his kid that lived there part-time. So when the kid was around, there wasn't as much of that stuff going on. But then when the kid would be gone, I don't really remember what exactly their custody schedule was, but I think a lot of times on the weekends, he was not with them. And that was a lot of times when those things were going on.
I don't think the kid was in the film. I didn't even clock that he had a kid. So I guess he probably wanted to keep that separate, I'm imagining.
His son's son was in the very beginning.
He would bring his son on tour, on the summer tour.
Margot, what was it like? Paint the picture of being in a tour bus with...
Oh, wow. Loaded question.
Yeah.
So, well, I've been on tour buses before, but not that long, not that widespread of a tour. And I remember the night we left, it was literally, and pardon my French, I guess, but it was a clusterfuck. It was just like Corey yelling at the bus guy, yelling at somebody else. They're so unorganized that everything was always last minute. So they were scrambling, which increased the stress, which caused everyone else to stress out. And so being on tour, he's never been on tour. So he, in the process of going on tour, just invites people like it's just one big party bus, basically. And that's how we treated it. And we would play some music like we're in the 80s. And it's like, you can just party every night. And that's how it is. And if you're a professional musician, that is not it. There's nothing glamorous about a long tour on a tour bus. You get sick of everybody. You need your alone time. But he literally filled up all those bunks. And Marcy had, at that point, our director of the film, Corey Feldman versus the World, had jumped on. So she's filling a bunk. Darcy's on, his girlfriend. She's filling a bunk. Eden, who's never done lighting ever for a show or anything, as far as I know, is all of a sudden our lighting guy, and he's on the bus. His son would jump on periodically. Our costume designer was on the bus. So we're filling up all those bunks when you're really not supposed to. It's actually supposed to be used for extra space so that under the bus, you can put your stuff that you don't immediately need for the next couple of days and you interchange it out. And that's kind of like how a professional tour goes. But this was the exact opposite. It was always messy on the bus. And there's little nuances in the film that you see too. And I think one of the more important things that I noticed recently and really helped me understand my younger self going through that was there's a lot of like half-filled water bottles. And that was because I felt at that point I was going to be in danger of being drugged and raped. And part of that included leaving an empty bottle open for something to be put in it. And I said this because I started to get wind of different things our guitarist Brittany would tell me, or Jezebel would tell me. And then at that point, I'd already seen more stuff of him online to be a little bit more self-aware and have all my, I was just hyper vigilant. I was really scared something was going to happen. So I was constantly on alert. And during that tour, this is where I'll kind of summarize, is that there were people that would come up to us and wonder if we were safe, if we were okay. Are we aware of him? And it just kept happening to the point where I'm like, they're not being disingenuous. They're coming up and having a really positive reaction to me as a human and trying to understand me, but they're just kind of warning me. I'm getting a little like freaked out. And I was psyching myself out at that point for all the good reasons, because I had got wind that he was going to try to drug and rape me because I didn't want to move in. I didn't want to be a girlfriend. He would try to touch me sometimes to fix my costume. And I just kind of like flinched, or I was, kind of get away from me, kind of with motions of my hands and stuff. And it just, I constantly felt like something bad was going to happen to one of us. And it just really put me where I was texting friends and family. I'm like, I think he's going to drug and rape me. Something bad's going to happen. And I'm really scared. And I've never been that scared in my life.
If I could comment as an objective viewer, you kind of see the tornado that is Corey, and you don't know who's, for lack of a better way of putting it, who's in on it and who knows what. So I imagine someone has the impression they would have of you and maybe ascertain, like, maybe you don't know what you're next to and you don't see it in the way that if I saw the behaviors that you haven't, or you've seen it and you're cool with it, right? Like who knows?
There were two sides to that. Yeah, no, people definitely were trying to see if I was okay with that behavior. And then I had other people, friends at the time that are no longer friends, that thought it was funny. Instead of taking my causes for maybe possible action of them intervening as like warning signs. But there was both. There was definitely both. People were scanning me, trying to understand the situation and trying to get information. But they were like he said in the film, there was people like that, but they were also really genuine. They really were concerned. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I would also imagine too, like, you're on the road and there's this kind of nebulous plausible deniability. Oh, it's life on the road, kind of in the same way that, like, in the locker room, boys will be boys. So it's kind of this atmosphere where the stuff it goes on, and maybe he creates that atmosphere intentionally. Who knows?
Margot, what do you think at this point kept you staying there? Like, do you think it was your contract, or were you like just not sure enough? Like at what point, because our experience is generally like the good outweighs the bad until it doesn't, and there's enough good there that keeps you. Would you say that was the case, or what was keeping you?
We were 3 weeks in the summer tour, and I was already, and using his words, bitching and being negative about not being paid. And that was my one thing, because I was still paying for my apartment back in LA, and that's not cheap. And I was literally running out of money to support that place. Even though I had sublet it, it was just like I couldn't count on that alone. I still had other bills. And it was putting me in a state of constant worry. I felt very much under attack because I not only felt like there was going to be drugging and raping, but also because I felt every time I went to go look, I was wearing undergarments under that costume, my bra, or I was wearing boy shorts or a bathing suit, and things kept missing. And this stuff just kept like building. And I feel like the tension was mounting too. So he was then turning the tide and whispering in people's ear, saying I'm being negative, saying I'm bitching all the time. Margot's just not happy, and Margot's being this. And it was really just, there was a lot of undercurrents going on. Like he would always text me that, I am shitty at my job, or I need to do my job, or you need to lose weight. I don't know why you were here, was one comment. It was just constant berating me. And I didn't feel safe enough to share it with the other women because I felt like they were going through their own thing. And I didn't want to put that on them. I felt like I felt a little like he was getting in my skin and I should just professionally handle it. But I wasn't able to really process because I was losing sleep. I was constantly worried. I wasn't eating good on the tour because when you're not paid and you're paying for your bills back in LA, you're not able to on the road go buy food. And they said they were going to supply the bus with food, but then it became about Courtney's food or his food, and that was it. And then we couldn't have it, or we could have it, and it was just certain things you could have. And things just kept mounting and things kept getting worse. And I was definitely made to be the scapegoat because I was trying to stick up for all of us. I was being like, no, none of this is right, everybody. None of this is okay. And I felt like I was just screaming on a rooftop and no one could hear me. And it's just, it drives me crazy to this day because I still have nightmares.
I bet. I hope that we can provide you with some resources to help you through some of that trauma, because that is horrifying to see what's going on, not be able to express it. And so just to be clear, look, 3 weeks in, you're not being fed properly. You can't, who sleeps properly on a bus? That's a nightmare for me in and of itself.
Yeah, dude, the bus thing.
I'm like,
I'm getting claustrophobic.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about it. And I'm a princess sleeper. It's never going to happen. But so 3 weeks and they didn't pay you for anything?
No, nothing. And it was direct deposit. So nothing hit my account. I asked Corey about it. He said to ask his manager. I asked his manager. He said to ask our tour manager, who was only 19 at the time. Never really done this before. And she's a very wonderful person who was put in a very precarious situation on purpose by him so that he could also blame her for things because she just didn't know. It's not like she had experience. Right. And he would hold her responsible for stuff. And you see that she's like screaming at her. But that was the screaming what you saw on camera was his mild side. And I think Jezebel definitely attests to that because we saw it way worse consistently.
I was wondering how much was captured by Marcy in terms of the tantrums. We talked about that a little bit with her, but the documentary, when a camera is not there, is when the real personality comes out with something like that. Jez, will you tell us a little bit about your tour experience with whatever you feel comfortable sharing?
So I think in some ways, Margot and I had an opposite experience in that way, whereas she was only dealing with him in rehearsals up until we went on the road. And then all of a sudden she had to deal with being around him all the time. For me, it was sort of the opposite, where I was living with him and having to deal with him all the time. And tour for me was a bit more freedom, it felt like. And it was, to me, was what I had put up with all of that for. So it actually felt like a relief in a lot of ways. The venues were providing us with a meal every time that we played a show, or like a per diem to buy food. And then it was part of the contract that they were supposed to supply food on the tour bus. So at that point, I felt more free to just help myself to the things that they did buy, which wasn't necessarily always a lot, but it felt a lot easier than living in the house with them. And I didn't have to be around him constantly. I didn't really hang out with him as much when we were on the road. So I was able to kind of get away from a lot of the toxicity because, like, as she was mentioning, like, it was a lot of yelling and screaming and just negative, toxic behavior constantly. And that's what I was putting up with a lot of the time living with him. So it was nice actually to be on the road and to be able to kind of get away from those things in a sense.
I have to ask, while you were on tour, I mean, obviously that stuff probably bled into some of your performances. As an artist, he's not particularly compelling. And you guys, how do you guys feel about the art while he's guiding it?
Too.
And do you guys know that and you guys feel that? And like, because it's not like you're putting up with him because of the art. So I imagine at some point there must be some sort of reconciliation where he's like not particularly good at what he's doing and then coming back and yelling at you. How did you guys reconcile that?
It was an opportunity for him throughout the tour to say that he was giving us solos. So in other words, we would perform a song of our own. And sometimes we would perform covers too. We kind of intermix that. But it was a time for him to do a costume change. So I would say I wasn't into any of the art. I thought the whole concept was quite ridiculous and just nonsensical. But I've been in shows before where, it's the artist's choice and you go with the artist's choice. You're a professional and this is what you do. But he would literally scream at me if I objected to him to do your job. You're supposed to be a professional. You're not loyal. And so I'd get screamed at behind the scenes a lot. And the art, I just was so annoyed. Like the designs of t-shirts and the costumes, I thought was just so ridiculous. So I'll just leave it at that. I would never do it ever again, even if I was paid 10 times that amount. Never.
Got it.
How about you, Jez?
So I also was not obviously a fan of his music. Definitely doing the solo performances was a big sell for me because I was able to perform an original song that I wrote, and we got to play for some very big crowds. So as an artist, that definitely was very compelling, and I probably wouldn't have stuck with the project if not for that promise. The other part was that, like, playing in the band with the girls was very fun, and like the music itself, not necessarily that his music was good, but like I got to play with some very talented women, and it was really fun learning how to play. I ultimately learned how to play bass, so they had hired me as a rhythm guitar player initially, and then the bass player quit about a month before we were supposed to go on tour, and I ended up learning how to play bass guitar in 30 days. And I actually really enjoyed it. And I continued doing it even after that project in a few other projects in LA. So there were certain things like that where, as an artist, there was some fun to it. Like, I really love playing live and I love tour life and being on the road. So there were things that were fun about it. But yeah, like the music itself was not appealing to me as an artist for sure.
You guys are very diplomatic.
I mean, there's lots of different styles of music out there, to each their own, all that stuff. Okay, guys, we're going to pause right there and have a little break, and we'll see you all back on Thursday to find out how Jez and Margot decided to leave, how they...
Creative differences, I'm guessing.
Creative differences, how they're healing, and what life has been like since this movie has come out. Stay tuned for part 2 with Margot and Jez.
Sinking down to the depths of the ocean, hanging on to the weight of my love. If I let go of it all, I could leave, but I know I won't.
We hope you're enjoying A Little Bit Culty. If so, please do show us some love. Drop a rating or leave a review. Hit subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/alittlebitculty.
Even better, send this episode to someone who needs it. Maybe they're in a cult. Maybe they're just a little bit susceptible. Or maybe they just love a good story. Spread the word, spread the love. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.
A Little Bit Culty is a Trace 120 production.
Executive produced by Sarah Edmondson and Anthony Nippy Ames in collaboration with producer Will Rutherford at Citizens of Sound. Our co-creator is Jess Temple Tardy.
Our production coordinator is Leslie Dinsmore.
Writing by Sandra Namoto and social media marketing by Eric Swarzinski and Brooke Keene.
Our theme song, Cultivated, is by the artists John Bryant and Nigel Aslan.